Okay, as always, the Open Meetings Act is posted in the meeting room up on the wall. We'll start with the consent agenda for Boswell. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by Boswell and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussions of these items unless a Boswell member so requests. Item A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. Item C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. Item D, removal of minutes of the regular meeting on March 17th, 2025 is on file with the city clerk's office. And item E, resolution number 79, designating the city administrator and the finance director as authorized signatories for financial documents as financial agents for Boswell. Anybody want anything pulled off? If not, Mr. McLean.
I move the items listed under the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
And your vote. That passes 8-0.
You,
All right.
7?
nope, it's 8. You count the vote on this
Yep,
one.
that's right. That's what I thought. Maybe they're taking that away from me. All right, we do have a public hearing tonight. The public hearing is for the proposed fiscal year 26 and 27 biennial budget. Hearing is now open.
Yes, so similar to what we did for the city 2 weeks ago, we do the same thing for Boswell. Their budget's obviously not nearly as big or as complex as the city side of things. So if you're, again, you should have a little handout of the budget in your packets. If you're looking at that, what you're looking at is revenues are very similar in FY26 and 27 to what they were in 23 and 24. 25 is an anomaly because we issued a bunch of bonds. So that's why the revenue were significantly higher in 25. But you see the revenues come back down to much closer to what we saw in 23, 24. Same with expenditures. Start looking ahead on expenditures. Personnel costs, all those things are very similar to what we've seen in the past. The biggest issue that you see is in FY27, you see a decrease in, or excuse me, you see expenditures outpacing revenues by about $300,000. That's when you start construction of the closure, post-closure on the current landfill. And so you see a bunch of dollars that are coming out of our cash reserves and our closure, post-closure fund. Those revenue dollars don't show up in the revenue line, but the expense comes out. And so that's why you see a decrease in, or you see expenditures exceed revenue.
That was actually a question I had. Is that why we're sitting a little bit higher in cash reserves? Because we plan on spending that on closure.
So yes, there is a formula that the state has us try to follow for closure, post-closure funds.
Right.
Hannah, maybe I'll speak to a little bit better, but we have to try to stay within that range. And so they'd like to see you have all 30 years of closure, post-closure funds available, but we have to start working on that for the landfill on the north side of the road. I think the first year, FY27, we start doing some engineering work, and then 28, 29 is when you start seeing dirt be moved over to that side for closure, post-closure. We talked about it. We did a rate increase, if you recall, back several months ago when we issued the bonds. So that's already been factored in here, and that's taken care of. So we don't have anything planned for 26. 27, we'll look, see how 26 comes out, and if we think we need something, we'll come back and talk to you in FY27. But at this point, the largest expenditure out at Boswell is the repayment of that debt that we have for the construction of the cell. If you've been out there and seen, we're getting very close to having the cell completed. The north side is got some sanitary sewer lines, some leachate lines that need to be done, but outside of that, most of it's done. Working on getting some buildings erected. So hopefully it is open here within the next couple of months. But outside of that, I don't know if you have any questions about the budget itself, but it's pretty slim. Not a lot happening on it. Again, most of the revenues is going back to paying off the debt for the expansion.
Any questions? The only thing that I would say is I get going too fast with all the abbreviations. So if they are people are listening to Beatrice, the Boswell stands for Beatrice Area Solid Waste Agency. With that, Mr. McLean, let's close the hearing.
I move public hearing be closed at 6:05 p.m.
Second.
And your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. Move on to resolutions. Resolution number 80, executing the Second Amendment to the lease with the City of Beatrice, Nebraska.
I move the resolution number 80 be passed and adopted.
Second.
So the land that the landfill sits on is actually owned by the city of Beatrice. There was a lease back in 1994 where the city then leased that ground over to Boswa. We've amended it once before. This is the second amendment. This amendment is really to do two things. One is to include the land both on the north side and the south side of the road in the lease agreement. Previous lease only had just the north side. And then second of all, as we discussed back January, February of this year, when issuing the bonds, that in order to keep the rates as low as we could, we were going to decrease the rent that Boswell pays the city for the land, down about $22,000 to $48,000 a year, and that's what this lease calls out for, this amendment. And then it also includes a 3% annual increase in the lease payments every year going forward, which was the same as it had been since it was originally written in 1994.
Any questions? If not, your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Okay, we'll move on to resolution number 81, executing task order number 24 for the engineer-owner agreement between the agency and Burns McDonald Engineering Company Incorporated for professional services, including sampling, monitoring, and testing services.
I move the resolution number 81 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Burns and Mack has been our engineers at the landfill now for quite some time. As we do every year, we have them prepare a task order for the work they're going to do the upcoming year. I'll bring it before you for approval. If you see in FY26, there's some air emissions reporting, there's some groundwater monitoring. Those are kind of routine things we have to do every year. The new one on this year is the installation of new groundwater well and gas probes on the new landfill. Again, something we kind of have to do, building a new landfill, we have to install these things. If you see, their task order calls for about $194,800 worth of work in FY26.
Any discussion needed? If not, your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. No ordinances. Anybody here want to speak up for the public forum? Seeing none, the next item will be to approval of the fiscal 26-27 biennial budget.
I move the proposed budget of disbursements for fiscal year 2026 in the amount of $2,271,019 and the proposed budget of disbursements for the fiscal year of 2027 in the amount of $2,548,391 be approved.
Second.
Any more discussion needed? If not, your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. That will conclude the Boswell meeting. Mr. McLean, would you close the meeting,
I
please?
move that the meeting be closed at 6:08 p.m.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Okay, we'll move right into the city council meeting. Please note that Councilman Ted is not here. We'll move to the Open Meeting Act. It is posted on the wall, and the consent agenda is going to be, there's 3 we need to do, and then we're going to go into the presentation of the cost and services rate design by JK Energy. So, first of all, the consent agenda items we'll approve will be the approval agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file on notices pertaining to this meeting. And item C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting.
I move the items listed on the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
Anybody want anything taken off? Not? I got out of order, didn't I? Your vote, please.
You want to turn yours off?
Oh, yeah, I can't vote. And 7-0. Just like that, they took my vote away. Okay. Now we're going to ask Mr. Kraske to come forward with JK Energy. He did a cost study and rate design study for the city. And welcome.
Thank you. I got a copy of my presentation if you want to take any notes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Tobias, is there anything you'd want to start with, or just want me to go?
I mean, I think everybody here knows that obviously the city is looking at some changes in our power supply come 2031. And with that in mind, the city undertook a rate study to look at what our current rates are, what we need to be by 2031. And so we've hired John Kraske to come out and help do that study for us. And John's prepared his presentation. And so we'll turn it over to John to let him talk you through what he's seeing in our electric rate ordinance.
Okay. Thank you, Tobias, Mayor, members of the council. I appreciate you pronounced my name correctly.
I've heard
It's
it once or twice. and
very unusual, so I apprate that. Glad to be here. I've been working with the city. I was looking back through some of my records back to probably about 2008. Been over a couple different employers. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I think the city has done some amazing things over the last 10 years with regard to its electric utility and maintaining its costs, serving its customers reliably. I think it's a very well-run utility. When I look at other utilities I work with, I think about the way Mr. Feist runs the system here, and it's a great system. You guys have done a great job, but there's always the but. There's certainly some changes going on in the industry that I think at this time warrant looking at your rates, looking at long-term power costs, how you maintain stability of your rates going forward. And that's why I'm here. Overview of the presentation, I'm going to talk about some background, talk about your financial results, go through the cost of service and rate design study. I have some rate recommendations, and then I'm going to show you what those rates compared to other utilities. You have very competitive rates right now. Your rates will continue to be competitive going forward. So, but again, looking at the future, there are some changes that need to be made that I'm recommending. So the last time we did a rate study was in 2021. And at that time, I didn't recommend any rate increases. I did recommend some rate structure changes, just in the way you charge your customer charge and the way you charge winter rates versus summer rates. And I'm going to stress too today, if the world wasn't changing, if your costs remained where they're at right now for the next 30 years, your rates are fine. Or even for the next 10 years, your rates are fine. But you have contracts that are short-term in nature. They expire in 2030. At the end of those contracts, it's very likely your power costs will be higher. Everything's getting more expensive. And so those changes in that power supply market really are dictating the generation study that the city's completed, the work they're doing with HDR on designing a new power plant, potentially participating in that. So those costs need to be recovered. And we know when that date is. 2030 is when your contracts expire. 2030 is when you're going to have a cost structure change. My goal is to propose rates to you that avoid you having to raise rates 40% in 2030. I'm trying to phase rates in over the next few years that minimize the dramatic impact you may have on your customers, and phase those rates in over time. So when I look at the study, go to the next slide. I looked at the financial performance of the utility. I developed rates that are fair, reasonable, non-discriminatory. That's a requirement under state law. So the rates have to reflect the cost of service. I have to calculate what your costs are in the summer, what your costs are in the winter, how much it costs to serve a residential customer versus a large industrial customer, and make sure that the rates reflect those costs of service. I do try to make rates that are competitive with the other utilities. Obviously, sometimes maintaining the financial integrity of the utility isn't consistent with having competitive rates. I have other clients where, hey, you got to pay the bills, so your rates need to be here. You're in a very fortunate situation with your rates that your rates are competitive, and even with the rate changes I'm proposing, they will continue to be competitive with your neighbors. So if we go ahead and go to the next slide, thank you. Normally I do a projection out about 4 years because I think anything beyond that's a little bit murky. My crystal ball isn't that good. I don't know, if my crystal ball was that good, I would probably not be doing rate consulting. I would just be talking to my broker every couple of days and making trades. But nonetheless, my crystal ball is pretty clear that when your contract expires, pursuing the generation plant, well, I believe that's probably the least cost solution for you right now. It is more expensive than what you're doing with your short-term contracts. When you entered those contracts, it was a very fortunate time to be signing those contracts. There was a lot of competition in the industry. There was a lot of excess wind energy in the marketplace. There were probably 1,500 hours a year where the market was paying the city to take energy, believe it or not, because there was an excess of wind that has a tax credit. Those days are starting to dwindle, and we're in a situation now where costs are going up. Reserve margins require you to buy more capacity in the winter season in particular, and there's really been a land rush for generation equipment. There's the Googles and the Facebooks and the AI companies of the world are building these mega data centers, 1,000 megawatt at a site, and that takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of capacity to do that. So in some cases, Google and Facebook, they're buying generation sets and putting them on site because they think they can do it quicker than the utilities. And a lot of times they can because they're not as regulated. That, of course, makes it tough when you're a utility is trying to serve your customers. The prices of those generator sets have gone up quite a bit. I still think it's the least cost solution for you, but if we'd have done this 5 years ago, it'd probably be a different situation. But there's a lot of things if I had done 5 years ago, any of us had done 5 years ago, we would do it differently. So the need for funding that project in 2031 is really driving the rate changes now. Again, I wouldn't recommend a change if it was just looking at 1 year in a vacuum. But knowing that over the next 6 years, your rates need to go up about 30%, I'm recommending you start to stair-step those changes in. So again, I think it's the next slide. No, there we go, at the bottom of that slide, thank you. The recommendation would be a 6% annual increase over the next 2 years, and that's what's in the rate ordinance. So that's kind of I'll just say that's the big picture recommendation. I think now would be a good time if you have any questions or concerns or comments to take. The rest of this, I'm going to talk about how I want to allocate those changes, but this is the most significant recommendation in the report.
John, a question I have for you is you mentioned needing to raise rates because of the potential of building a power plant. Would the same thing be there if we decide not to build a power plant and instead buy capacity out in the open market?
Yes. Right now, building the power plant appears to be the least cost option compared to buying in the market. I would say that I just completed a process for an RFP for another city that if those were the proposals the city of Beatrice got to replace their power in 2031, you would probably be looking at more like a 7 or 8% annual increase compared to doing the generation. There's a lot of scarcity in the market right now. Entities are pricing in a lot of what I'll call risk premium into their purchase power agreements. I think the construction of the generation provides you longer term stability, lower costs, and frankly, it enables you to control your destiny. You're not at the mercy of the market for changes in capacity cost, changes in energy cost. What happened in 2021 with the 4 days where the prices were over $1,000 a megawatt hour. Putting in a dual fuel generating unit with oil on site provides you a wonderful hedge. I mean, it's a great hedge against those kinds of market conditions. And this is, at this point, appears to be the lowest cost solution. Anything else you do is going to require just as high of a rate increase, if not higher rate increases than what we have in here.
So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So are we kind of faced with a perfect storm kind of situation where we need more energy because people are using more? You talked about kind of the big guys stepping in maybe and doing something that they normally wouldn't do, the Googles, the AI. And then capacity. Can we define capacity again so we can try to understand that a little bit? and why we need so much.
Well, I wouldn't call this, I wouldn't characterize this one as a perfect storm for this reason. You know, the perfect storm, they were out in the ocean and they didn't know it was coming, and it took the boat out. I mean, that's my recollection of the movie. Here, we're looking 6 years out. Your power supply situation is fine through the end of 2030. So we have time to plan this. I've got a client this other client I'm talking about, their contract expires at the end of 2026. They got notice at a very bad time that contract was terminating. So you do have time to adequately plan this. I've had a client in the past too that there's a saying in the generation engineering and construction field: fast, cheap, or good. Pick two. So they wanted it to be good, but they needed it in 18 months. So guess what? It wasn't cheap. So you're in a situation where I think you have a decent schedule through 2030 to get this project completed. And that's why I don't think it's a perfect storm. It is a very complicated time in the power industry right now. Again, there's a lot going on, but you're in a great position because you have your contracts locked in through 2030. So,
And John-
did that answer your question?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
you're welcome.
Explain the capacity energy
No,
question.
I think we need to explain capacity for everybody listening.
You want to take a shot at that one?
I'll take a shot at it. So there are two general products that you buy as an electric utility. There's a lot of other stuff too, but transformers and wires. But with regard to power supply, you have to have enough capacity to serve the single highest hour of usage on your system. So your peak is about 43 megawatts. So that means during the highest hour of last summer, your customers used 43,000 kilowatt hours in 1 hour. And so that is how much you need. You need to buy 43 megawatts of capacity plus what's called a planning reserve margin. So you have to have enough purchases to cover that one single hour plus 16%. 16%. So in reality, you need, I'll go to math, 48, 49 megawatts of capacity in the summertime. In the future, SPP's winter margin, because that's when the outages occurred a few years ago, it's going to be 37%, 38%. So you have to buy for every 1 megawatt of that peak load, you have to have 1.4 megawatts. So that's going to drive you to need a generator on the ground or contracts for capacity to cover a peak of about 53, 54 megawatts, give or take. So that's capacity. It's the ability to serve the highest usage hour. Now, energy, though, that's the other product. And that's just the everyday, how much energy you need to serve, like on a let's say a fall day where it's 55 degrees out, nobody's got their heaters on, nobody's got their air conditioning on, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, your load may be down at 16 or maybe a third of what it is during those peak hours. So you're buying a lot less energy during those hours, but you still have that capacity cost that you had to pay to cover those peak hours when they occurred. So did I confuse you more, or did I? But I think the analogy for capacity versus energy is capacity is like the speedometer on your car. It's how much you're using. It's how fast you're going, how fast the meters are going. The odometer is like the energy. So you've got hours where you're going 120 miles. Well, I don't go 120 miles an hour. 60 miles an hour versus hours when I go 20 miles an hour. And that reflects the odometer. So.
Thank you, sir, for being here, and I don't know if this is a question for you or Tobias.
Okay.
Based on the total amount of electricity that we use in a year, in dollars and cents, what does a 6% annual increase total in total dollars for this community?
I think, John, in your presentation, you've got it figured out.
I think I do, yes. I do have it figured out for like a typical residential customer a couple slides later. Can we, would that answer your question, do you think? Or
I didn't hear you, sir.
later on in my presentation, I will talk about what the rate
That
impacts.
would be fine.
Okay.
I have a question.
We'll come back to you first,
Okay.
Terry.
Is he gonna come back when we have discussions about added power, the plants and partnerships and all those possibilities, or are we just gonna have that discussion here?
If I can talk him into being here.
Okay, all right.
He
Well,
pays
that would
me to
be,
be here.
that would be nice. That's a pretty big deal there.
Yes.
It is a very big deal. But, so what I'm getting out of your conversation when I read all this prior is, we always have choices, I guess, but we have very few here. We either do this and boom, or we gradually do it this way. And we've discussed this at least in committee meetings and stuff, and we all felt that this was a much better way of going after this rather than, whether it's 30% or 40%, it probably balloons on top of itself if we don't do things along the way. So, am I reading that right?
That's correct. I always prefer rate stability if possible.
Yeah.
I prefer to implement steady increases over multiple years because customers don't like getting 40% rate increases. And I just did a rate study where we had to raise rates 15%. It was on the water system, but nonetheless, as I told them, I said the best time to raise your rates was 3 years ago, and to do it 5% a year. Now the second best time is now, because their cash situation was. And to be clear, your finances would be fine leaving rates down here, but boy, those customers, when that big rate shock occurs in 2031, I wouldn't want to be sitting in any of those chairs because, I think, and I'll say another factor too in raising the rates steadily from now until 2031. At some point between now and 2031, the city with a group of other cities is going to have to finance this project because you don't have $120 million sitting in the bank. At least I don't. No, you don't. I know you don't. So you'll have to issue bonds, revenue bonds, to pay for these projects. And one of the things that the rating agencies will look at is, hey, what's your rate situation look like? And can you afford to pay for this project once you've issued these bonds? And I think having a head start on making those rate changes now helps you with the rating agencies, and that means you're going to pay a lower interest rate than if you just waited till the end and said, yeah, we're going to finance this and we're going to raise the rates 40%. It shows that you're being proactive. You're putting, and that money that you're collecting, it isn't like it's disappearing. It's going into your your electric fund. It's money that you could potentially use to reduce how much you borrow in the future. I think the steady increases are the way to go on this one.
I have a question. I've had people ask me, okay, we're talking about, building a power plant, correct? Okay, is that power plant going to be used for the every day-to-day operation, or is it just when we need it, for this peak time?
So the city operates in what's called the Southwest Power Pool, and they operate an integrated marketplace. So what they do is they look each day how much energy the region needs or how much capacity the region needs, looks at all the resources in the region, and it picks the lowest cost ones to run. I have done some projections based on current market prices and what the cost of this new generator is probably going to be. I would estimate it's probably going to run anywhere from 25 to 35% of the time. So what's most likely going to happen is this generator will not be running at night unless there's a severe system emergency. In the winter, it may run 7 to 10 in the morning when there's the morning peak. It may run again from 3 to 8 o'clock in the evening when there's the evening peak, and then shut down overnight. In the summer, most likely it would run from, on a really, really hot day, maybe from 10 in the morning till 10 at night, 11 o'clock at night. Maybe more of a typical summer day, maybe runs from 3 to 8 o'clock in the afternoon, but about 25 to 35% of the time.
Okay, so it won't be generating just the power for Beatrice all the time. It's just on these, what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
and
I've had that asked me, and it's hard to explain, so that's
Yeah,
why it knows what you're
and there may be hours when your load is only 25 megawatts, but in the spring and fall, there's a lot of other large generator coal units that are on maintenance outages. And so sometimes those hours get tight, and you may have a 55, 60, 65 degree day where you're thinking, geez, there's nobody running air conditioning, but we're running the power plant. And it's just because maybe the wind isn't blowing in western Kansas and western Nebraska, and you just need it. But, SPP, and you're going to get paid to run. I mean, if they're not going to run you unless it's economic to run, and you're going to get paid your fuel cost when you run for the SPP grid.
Yeah, Mayor, I think we're in the infancy of discussing this. I'm glad we are, but we're probably premature and worrying about too many details right now because we don't have any answers yet.
With regards to the power plant,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, that's why we're doing the study with HDR right now, trying to figure out what's the best option moving forward. That certainly is one of them that we are exploring. But yeah, I think as Mr. Kraski's indicated, I mean, that looks like it's the best option, but still a lot of water has to go under that bridge before we get there, and any decisions made by this council as to what is the ultimate decision moving forward.
And I guess the further I would answer that is I would say that, it's kind of what John had said earlier. We have time to plan. And because we have time to plan, we can make a very wise decision that will save all of our consumers money. It just may not be today, but it will be in 2031. And so it's visionary, and it's planning, and it's putting, hopefully, the community, as I've always said, in an independent path for success between water, the landfill, and now electricity. And that's probably a very unique spot for a lot of cities. I could be wrong, but.
I mean, I would say that the majority of cities in the state, their power supply, other than the Grand Islands, Hastings, Fremonts of the world, most of them are either dependent on NPPD, Municipal Energy Agency of Nebraska, some are on OPPD, Omaha Public Power District. And I'll just say, I mean, it's a fact, Mean who serves City of Fairbury, for example, and the City of Crete. They just took a 10% rate increase at the wholesale level this year. So a lot of those cities are taking 6 and 7% increases just to cover that. NPPD has been pretty stable over the last few years, just like yours have been, but they're building a lot of capacity too. They're going to have to pay for that. But yeah, you do control your destiny, better or worse, you control it. And generally, I think I would rather control my destiny than have it dependent on somebody sitting somewhere else. I mean, I would trust myself personally, or I'd trust, if I was Tobias and the mayor, I would trust the city to control that destiny. And that's the path you chose 7 or 8 years ago when you went down this path. So
Let's go ahead and let you continue here.
Yep, okay. Let's go ahead and skip to the cost of service slide. So again, I talked about this earlier. You need to have rates that are fair, reasonable, non-discriminatory. I'd say the most important part about that is reasonable means that you're not charging twice of what it costs you, and we're not going to be doing that here. Non-discriminatory, I can't charge Tobias a lower rate than I charge the mayor because I like Tobias and I don't like the mayor, or vice versa. So you have to treat similarly situated customers the same. That's why you have a residential rate that applies to all your residential customers. Now you have an all-electric rate that applies just to those customers with all-electric service. But they're different because they use more in the winter, where traditionally it's been cheaper in the winter than in the summer. So when we do the rates, if we go to the next slide, here are the key findings. You have an extremely low customer charge. I would estimate, I think, that the cost to provide a single customer with service, if they use no electricity, say a snowbird shuts the breaker off, leaves town, not that you do that with the winter, but just no usage. It costs you $20 or so a month to serve that customer, because you have to have a wire to the house. You have to have a meter on the side of the house. You have to have wires, a minimally sized wire at least, to get to the house. You got a transformer sitting on the pole. You've got people at City Hall that are reading the meters and sending out a bill, and that all costs money. And $8 a month, which is what you're charging your residential, or, I'm sorry, 12, no, it's,
$12.
Well,
$12 a month, I'm sorry. $12 a month is not, I'm sorry, I was looking at it. Yeah, $12 a month is not covering that cost. And that means that there's a couple things that means. It's those low usage customers are being subsidized by other customers. It also means that if you have let's say a net metering customer, let's say somebody who has a solar panel on the roof of their house. Let's say they size it perfectly so that they don't buy any energy from the city. All you're collecting from them is the customer charge. And so you are subsidizing that particular, your other customers are subsidizing that particular customer to the order of $8 or $9 or $10 a month. Now, if you have a solar panel on your roof, you could probably afford the extra 7 or 8. They don't need to be subsidized, is my point. I think it's important that you start to move that customer charge up to make sure that you're protected, that you're appropriately charging your customers the cost of service. So, another finding too is what we've seen in the past few years is winter costs have gone up faster than summer costs. Saw that with the storm in 2021. You have traditionally had a discounted rate for all electric service. That discount is probably not as applicable now because the costs in the winter have increased more than the summer. I'm not saying you need to eliminate it, but I think you need to raise the winter rates for those customers somewhat more than you raise the summer rates to eliminate the differential there. Excuse me. So that's the general findings. And so the rate design that I've implemented or I'm proposing would address those issues, not in one fell swoop. I'm not going to raise your customer charge $10 a month. I am proposing that it be raised over a couple of steps to get closer to the cost of service. Again, reflecting stability. I don't want to raise the customer charge from $12 to $24 because that would have an unfortunate impact on small users. But phasing it in over a couple of years, I think would be a reasonable way to do that. So, all right, I think I've already talked about that. So let's just go ahead with the rate design changes. Thank you. Again, I'm proposing that the customer charge for all customers be increased. That's that fixed monthly bill. I'm proposing to raise the winter season rates a little bit more than the summer season. So particularly residential electric heat and general service space heat, those are folks that have a discounted rate. Their rate will end up going up more than the folks who don't have those services. And again, that's just based on the cost of service. The last one is you have an irrigation rate schedule that has no customers on it. I don't really see much of a reason to have a rate class that you don't have any customers on. You do have some irrigation customers that are served under your general service rate because they're year-round services. So that would be that change. All right. And the next item, as I've talked about previously, the primary focus of these rate changes, the need for it, is driven by infrastructure, the need to construct additional capacity or purchase capacity from somebody else, but it's really about infrastructure. And my recommendation would be that most of this rate increase would be absorbed, would be collected through what I'm calling an infrastructure charge. And that money would be collected each month. It varies by rate class. Residential is a little bit smaller than general service and general service demand. I'm proposing that $3 a month for residential, $4 a month for general service, which would be like a restaurant or a Casey's or something like that. And then general service demand, which would be your larger customers, the factories, maybe a larger grocery store. Those would be charged $10 a month. And that money would be put into a special fund. That money would only be designated for use for infrastructure projects. Now, it could be distribution, it could be transmission, or the generation project, but it's money that will be set aside not to be spent on consultants or salaries, but rather just for putting away for that future capital needs that you may have. Okay.
So, in the most simplest of terms, a lot of times I've been told we need to run our government like a business. So if we're running a business that we lose money all the time, pretty soon we're going to be broke, right?
If you lose money all the time, pretty soon you're going to be broke, unless you're the federal government.
Depending on the number you give us. I mean, I don't know, people want stuff from us all the time, and if we can't provide it and at least break even, we're probably like a business, and we probably won't last very long
Right.
without digging into our cash reserves.
That's correct. Yeah. And the goal of this infrastructure charge really is to set aside some money to help pay for that future project, so that maybe down the road, rather than borrowing $100 million, maybe it's only $90 million that you need to borrow. I mean, as an example, or even on a distribution project that, I know Pat or the electric department just put in a new substation, and I think that was about a $3 million project. This is money that could be used to fund those kinds of projects without having to borrow or raise rates immediately to fund them. So, did that answer your question or address your comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a quick
Yes.
question. So is the infrastructure charge to help with the low customer charge? Or is that going to be two separate?
Yeah, that I'm proposing that it's a fixed amount, that it will help though address that customer charge disparity.
Okay.
So we're raising the customer charge to get it closer to what the cost of service is, but we're designating a portion of that to be put aside for the future capital projects. And again, that's the first year infrastructure charge, then it will go up. In fiscal year 27, it'll be $6, $8, and $20 for those customers. So, all right. Next slide, I think, will address your question earlier from what the rate impact is on this. The typical residential customer with this first year rate increase would see an increase of about $5.25 a month. 3 of that will be the infrastructure charge, and then the energy charge would go up about $2.25. And that's based on I'll just say a typical residential customer over the course of a full year. If you use more in the summer, it may be more. If you use less in like a spring or fall, it would be less. But on an average over the course of the month, over the year, that's what it would be. Okay. Rate comparisons. So I looked at a peer group with the advice of the city. I looked at Lincoln Electric System, the City of Crete, Norris Public Power District, which of course serves the rural area around you, and NPPD, who serves a lot of cities in Nebraska. Probably the closest to you would be over in Humboldt, and they have a little pocket of retail down there. But they serve the cities of York and Columbus, not Columbus, York and Kearney and Ogallala, Scottsbluff. So that's who they serve. And even with these rate increases, your rates, both in the summer and winter for residential, are toward the lower end of the spectrum. LES is still a little bit lower than you. They serve 125,000 customers. They have a history of owning and building generation, and they've got a large customer base with some large industrial loads. They're building that new Google plant, Google data center. So they got a lot more load to spread their costs over. So they're going to be the gold standard in terms of having competitive rates. They just raised rates mid-year though, and they're starting to see rate increases, and that's just the reality of where they're at. But for Beatrice with 12,000 people, 13,000 people, give or take, having competitive rates with the city of 250,000 or more, I think that speaks well to the way you're running your system. Do I wish these rates were lower than LES's? Absolutely. But I think you're doing a great job of providing a competitive product and not doing it in a way that's unreliable and deferring maintenance and construction on your system. Yes, sir.
So are the LESs of the world charged with building capacity generation just like we would?
Yes. In fact, Lincoln Electric System just submitted an application to the Nebraska Power Review Board to build a couple of new combustion turbines they have a power plant over about 70th and Interstate 80, just north of the interstate there, across from where that Google data center is being built if you go through there. They built a combined cycle plant there, which is it's 2 combustion turbines, and then they take the heat when the combustion turbine is running, and they heat up water and boil it, and then run it through a steam turbine. It's a very efficient. You can get efficiencies of 60% or more, but they're more expensive, obviously. But yeah, they built that back in the 2005, 6, 7 timeframe, and they built it to accommodate additional generation. So they're putting in 2 larger combustion turbines there. They're dealing with the same issues you are. We're all in the same regional transmission organization. We all play by the same rules. NPPD is building additional capacity up by Hallam. OPPD has about 800 megawatts in their generator queue that they're working on getting built as well. So all in the same boat.
Can you tell me what year this is for, the rate comparisons? Is that for after 26 increase?
So this is after the first rate increase. This will be the rate increase that's going into effect if you approve the ordinance on October 1st of this year. And it's being compared to the rates that are currently on file for each of these other utilities. And so I know that at least one of these utilities is probably going to be raising rates around January 1st, if not a couple of others. But this is based on the information we have right now. Publicly available information we have right now. And now general service, I mean, you're right in there with the other 4 utilities. I wouldn't be worried about the fact that maybe you're the 4th highest, but you're 3rd highest. You're within a range of reasonableness. And those numbers are going to change based on load factor, whether they use it in the summer or in the winter. So I think these rates are very competitive, and they're certainly not the kind of rates that a Casey's or somebody like that is going to say, I don't want to buy power from you, I'm going to build outside the city limits. I mean, it's certainly not anything like that. So in conclusion, and I think this answers the other part of your question, by 2031, you would need to raise rates about $6.6 million. Now, we're not doing that all in one step. It's going to be more like about $700,000 or $800,000 the first year, about that 6%. Cost service, again, customer charges are going to go up more than the rest through that infrastructure fee. All electric rates are going to go up somewhat more than the rest of the residential rates and the non-all electric rates. My recommendation in the report that was given to you is to adopt the rate ordinance. It's in Appendix A. That would implement the first 2 steps of the rate increase, the first step being October 1st of this year, the second step being October 1st of next year. And again, it would implement the infrastructure fee with those funds being designated to be set aside for capital projects. It is my opinion that you will need to raise rates further, regardless of whether you could pursue the generation plant or continue buying from the market. I think that you should plan on probably seeing me in a couple of years or my successor. I'm planning to be around, so I'm planning to still be doing rate work. Hopefully the city of Beatrice is still working with me, but I would expect fully, though, that there would be another couple of rate increases implemented at that time. By then, you should have a clearer picture on what the power supply situation looks like. Crystal ball isn't as hazy when we get out that far, but at that point, you can look at those rates and decide how you want to proceed with the rates going forward. And with that, I'm done with my presentation. I want to thank you all for the good questions this evening. I always worry when I give a presentation like this and there's a rate increase or something dramatic, when the council just sits there with glazed eyes and like, I move we approve it. I appreciate that you answered questions. It's obvious you read the report. It's obvious Tobias has been briefing you on what's been going on in the industry. So I appreciate your engagement this evening. And if there are any final questions, I'm happy to take them.
Final questions up here. This is your opportunity before we go into looking at the rate ordinance for approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I appreciate it.
And I guess the only comment that I would say is you look at these things and we try to figure out what we're doing for the future. I think you can look at LES, who says, hey, we got to build more we gotta build more, we gotta generate more. And one of the reasons they're the lowest is because they've been in the game a lot longer than we have. And so I think we have to keep that in mind as 26 and 27, we have to make that decision for a power plant because it's not made yet. But we do have to look at what I would say our other competitors have done, and especially over a period of time that's led them to success. So,
One last question here. John, you mentioned in here on the 26 infrastructure fee that it would go up to, and then it goes up again in 07. Are you thinking that needs to go up again in 08, 09, or is that too far out?
I think I'd make that decision. And I would think, though, that if it isn't in an infrastructure fee, it's going to be money that's going to be set aside to pay debt, either pay debt service or pay capacity costs that may increase at that time.
Gotta be somewhere.
Yeah. But I don't want to be held to, I don't want in 2 years somebody to pull the minutes out and say, you said. But I do think that there will be likely the need for either funding infrastructure or funding debt service at that time.
John, any rate increase is an important decision we have to make, but in my opinion, the decision we're going to have to make early next year is far larger. And I would hope you would be conscious of that and help us with that decision and be around so we can ask you questions and really bring that forward, because that's going to be a major decision for our community.
Absolutely. I agree. That's a much bigger decision than, I mean, it's a, and I can share a story about a client that I wasn't working with in Colorado that pursued a power plant back in, I'll say, the 2006, 7, 8 timeframe. And I was working for another utility that was offered an opportunity to buy into this plant. And we read the reports, we read everything, and I'll just say we identified probably 6 fatal flaws in their plan when we looked at it, and we said, no thanks, we're out. And as a result of them pursuing that plant, they spent $130 million on a project that never reached commercial service because they hired bad engineers, they had a bad plan, they didn't think it through. There's a reason you hired HDR, and the reason you hired Burns & McDonnell last year to look at the siting study. You're doing your due diligence, unlike them. And I will be here to help you find, if there is a fatal flaw, I'm going to find it. I'm going to help you find it, and I'm going to help you make sure that you make good decisions. That's my goal. And as long as you want me here to do that, I'm happy to be here.
Appreciate it.
thank you very much.
All right, thank you all.
Spend the time with us. Okay. We'll move on to the ordinance establishing electric utility rates in the city of Beatrice, Nebraska, as recommended by the Board of Public Works.
I move that said ordinance be given number 25-26, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. And that passes 7-0. Ordinance number 25-26 by number only the first time, 25-26 the second, and 25-26 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 25-26 be passed and approved.
Second.
Any further discussion needed? If not, let's vote. And that passes 7-0. Okay, we will move on to the rest of the consent agenda.
Thanks, John.
Bear with me, it's a little lengthy tonight. All right, so we had A, B, and C. We'll move on to D. Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on September 2nd, 2025 is on file with the city clerk's office. Item E, approval of the treasurer report of claims in the amount of $1,253,080.62. Approval of BOS report of claims in the amount of $1,750,547.43. Approval of BPW report of claims in the amount of $646,553.16. Approval of pay request number 3 in the amount of $155,015.78 to M.E. Collins Contracting Incorporated for the Beatrice Lincoln School improvements. Item I, approval of pay request number 8 in the amount of $934,817.76 to Genesis Contracting Group for the Boswell South MSW landfill site entrance facility project. Item J, approval of pay request number 8 in the amount of $777,382.19 to Pris Excavation for the Boswell South MSW landfill Phase 1S project. Item K, refer claim of Keith and Mary Ellen Long regarding damage to their property, personal property, to the city attorney and the city insurance carrier for review and disposition. Item L, resolution number 7616, executing the agreement between the city and Sewer AI for the provision of software design for sewer and stormwater inspection data management and for the migrating of city's previous data to Sewer AI platform as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Item M, resolution number 7617, designating the city administrator and the financial director as the authorized signatories for financial documents as financial agents of Boswell, BASWA. Item N, resolution number 7618, executing the second amendment to the lease with Beatrice Area Solid Waste Agency. Item O, resolution number 7619, adopting an abuse prevention policy. Item P, resolution number 7620, adopting a bilingual pay policy. Item Q, resolution number 7621, executing the lease agreement between the city and Quadrant Leasing USA Incorporated to continue leasing a postage machine from Quadrant. Item R, resolution number 7622, granting permission to the Beatrice Area Chamber of Commerce and Gage County Tourism and their designees to sell or offer for sale or peddle goods, wares, or merchandise upon the city property located in Charles Park, the Carnegie Building, the public parking lot just south of the Carnegie Building on the 5th Street between High Street and East-West Alley between Ellis Street and High Street as part of their holiday lighted parade event on December 6, 2025. And item S, resolution number 7623, executing any and all documents necessary between the city, Everbridge Incorporated, and Jefferson County, including but not limited to an interlocal cooperation act agreement for the city to use Everbridge Incorporated's mass communication platform. Anything anybody wants me to take off?
Item K, please.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, Mr. McLean.
I move that all items listed on the consent agenda with the exception of item K be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Your vote, please. Oops.
Second.
Sorry.
Second by Rue.
I just,
And I just want to make sure when you say K, you mean the claim by Keith and Mary Ellen.
Yeah,
Okay, I just want to make sure, because there were different letters on the online version, so I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
correct.
Okay.
Councilman Rue seconded, so now your vote, please. And that passes 7-0. Okay.
I move that item K listed on the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
Okay.
I'm just wondering what this was in reference to.
So Keith and Mary Ellen Long, I think their address is in there, but it's up on Prairie Lane, if I'm not mistaken. They allege that they had a sewer backup sometime in September and have filed that claim back against the city. So we will submit that on to the insurance company for their review.
Good enough.
Anything else? Okay, your vote, please. That will pass 7-0. Okay. We have a number of public hearings and bids tonight, mainly public hearings. Public hearing for the purpose of setting the property tax request for the city of Beatrice for fiscal year 2026. That hearing is now open.
Yeah, so last meeting, we went over the budget. This time we come back and we set our property tax request for this upcoming year. As you guys recall, we had a property tax request. What we're proposing is $3,811,235 this next coming year, which would be a tax rate of 0.368893 for the city of Beatrice. As you guys recall, we went through the new state budget form to show how we got to that $3.8 million number. We started with the $3.3 million that we had last year. We had the growth rate of 0.39%, You had the inflation rate, which was 5.17%. And then we had a exemption we used for the bonds that we have at the airport, because those are the only property tax bonds that we currently have. So we used that exemption. And we had an exemption this year on our prior unused tax request authority. Whether or not that's there in the future, we're not entirely sure. We'll wait to see what that looks like in future years. But we use those. You add all those numbers up, and that's how you get the $3.8 million, which was our property tax request this year.
Discussion.
I wasn't here, you know that. I appreciate your email, but I think you know me well enough that I'll work to understand what went on. I met with Tobias
Sure.
and other people, and I just have just 1 minute of the council's time here. I think Ted was in a meeting with me, and we asked Tobias to go back a few years and just, for your interest maybe, take a look at how the city of Beatrice only has been taxing people over a long period of time. And so statistics kill you, but I'm going to put a couple out here, all right? So we decided, take a $100,000 house. Not everybody has a $100,000 house. A lot of people have more than a $100,000 house. And compare it with 20, 25 years ago. What's been going on? And the highest tax that just the city charged that house in 2019 was $400, $399. The lowest tax was in 2002, 2003, and 2004 of $274. All right. The tax request for next year is $60 higher than the actual tax request on that house in year 2000, which is just almost hard to imagine. But when you're only talking about the city of Beatrice, that's what it raised. I mean, that ends up being just under 20% increase over that entire time. So the only reason I really wanted to bring it up, and I just wanted to say one other thing, the only reason I wanted to bring it up is I just want the public to know how hard mayors and councils have over the last 25 years, how hard all of us work all the time trying to do the best job we can and keep the taxes and utility rates and all this stuff as low as we can possibly keep those things, but still get them everything that they are asking us to get them. So, plus we work our ass off to try to get all the state and federal grants we can get to make those monies go even further. But I just wanted to give you that for a thought. That was kind of remarkable to me. Secondly, and then I'll quit. Secondly, I don't know how many of you can even access it or did access it, but if you, on the attachments to this, I don't know how many people are here, but half of them are city staff, but we don't have people come to these meetings, and it was the same when I was there 40 years ago. And I think part of it is just because it's so damn complex. I mean, if you look at this, we have $102 million of resources run through this place in a year. That is not easy. That is a huge, huge business. And it's not getting any less. It's just not. So part of the reason we don't have people come is because they don't know what to ask, or even where to start. And at the same time, we're trying to run utilities. We're trying to keep all the state and federal laws that we have to take care of every single day. We try to take care of all new state and federal laws for all the grants we get because everybody's separate. Everybody has their own regulations. We have personnel we try to keep happy and healthy for this entire time, and our department heads are working their butts off doing all new capital projects. So it's a huge, huge, complex system that we have here. And I just wanted to close and say how much I appreciate it just for me, and I know all of you, I'm sure I can speak for you, how much we appreciated Hannah's work in this and all the other department heads for not only looking now, but guessing where it's going to be 8 years out so we can start planning just like we're talking about with this gentleman this evening, and especially for our budget, Bob. I appreciate Hannah and Tobias and your insight for this because I went through it multiple times and I went through it again for a few hours with Tobias, and it's an extremely good job you guys did, I thought, on this, so I just wanted to pass that on.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I think one of the things that you have to look at because nobody likes a tax increase, even me, because it affects me as well. But what you have to look at is if you don't take that step, you're going to be behind for 10 years because you don't get it back. And I won't mention the community, but I will mention that it's my hometown. Not a lot of people know what my hometown is, so. But anyway, you know, they have a young city administrator, and we will defend the budget here another week from now. He didn't want to do that, and so they cut out $830,000 out of their budget, and it's a smaller community. That's $830,000 they're not going to get back. That's $830,000 that's going to affect their police department, their ambulance department, their public service department, and their administration. And as other communities, if they don't take that step, it's kind of like electricity. We have to be prudent, and we have to look for the future and make sure we have the money to do what we do. Otherwise, it comes out of cash reserve, and when it comes out of cash reserves and the cash reserves are gone, I think Gary said it best, then the business is out of business. And so, with that, anybody from the public? All right, let's close the hearing.
I move the public hearing be closed at 7:06 PM.
Second.
Your vote, please. That passes 7-0. Now we'll do a resolution number 7624, setting the property tax request for the city of Beatrice for fiscal year 2026.
I move the resolution number 7624 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Yeah, this just sets your property tax levy at .368893 as we just discussed.
Any other comments, concerns, questions? If not, your vote, please. And that passes 7-0. All right, we'll open the public hearing for the purpose of supplementing the fiscal year 2025 budget. The hearing is now open.
So one of the things we always do at this meeting is we go back and we look at the current fiscal year we're in, so in FY25, and look to see, do we need to supplement the budget? Do we have any areas where we are anticipating that we're going to spend more than we initially budgeted? Every year we have a few spots. So again, this year we have a couple of them. If you have your sheet there in front of you, you can look, see general fund. We're looking at a supplement of $445,000. Most of those are due to grant funds that we initially did not budget for, but we ended up receiving. So those are items that were initially, like I said, unbudgeted for. We do have Dempsters in there for $106,000 coming out of cash reserves. And we're initially looking at having some public safety debt. We ended up not issuing the public safety debt. And so those were funds that we then had to pull out of cash reserves. And so that's the change there. Health insurance, we've talked about it a number of times over the last year. We talked about last week quite extensively, but you see we had health insurance claims, so those came out of cash reserves, and reinsurance reimbursements came in as well there. That's just about $1.3 million. On the CDBG fund, we had a couple of projects that initially were going to run other places or got carried over that came through here. So that was about $872,000. Again, those are grant funds. On the capital improvements, again, we have to count the Dempster's demo. Again, it's an accounting reason. Hannah can explain to you exactly why we count it twice. But again, that's $106,000 we just discussed coming out of cash reserves. And then we have the RCRP grant that we initially didn't budget for. If everybody remembers the history, that was the Kensington grant that turned into playgrounds for $480,000. And then you see sanitation has a few things on there. Those are largely unanticipated vehicle repairs, increased price in recycling, increased average tonnage fees, but they have additional revenue that came in to make up for all of those additional expenditures, about $300,000. The electric department, when we put the budget together, we did not have Radiant Tech at that time. They've since started operations, and so they required us to go out and purchase additional power. At the same time, we have revenue coming in to pay for that, but we're only worried about the expenses here. And then the water department, you can see they had a number of items. Largely what happened in the water department is usually those guys have enough capital projects that they can just avoid a capital project or move some stuff around to make up some of these little things that happen to them. He only had one capital project this year, and that was boring the river on the west side there. And so a lot of these little things that popped up that need to be repaired or taken care of, we simply didn't have other items that we could simply push off or not do this year. So he ended up about $500,000 there of some items we had to take out of some cash reserves and out of bond proceeds. So those would be the items we're looking to amend the FY25 budget with.
Any discussion from the public? Let's close the hearing.
I move the public hearing be closed at 7:10 PM.
Second.
Your vote, please. That passes to 7-0. Supplementing the fiscal year 2025 budget isn't, we have to do an ordinance. So we're on an ordinance adopting the supplemental budget for the year of 2025.
I move that said ordinance be given number 25-20, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. And that passes 7-0. Ordinance number 25-20 by number only the first time, 25-20 the second, and 25-20 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 25-20 be passed and approved.
Second.
Any more discussion needed? Your vote, please. Passes 7-0. Okay. Now we have an ordinance, is that right? Ordinance adopting the biennial appropriations bill for the fiscal year 26 and 27.
I move that said ordinance be given number 25-21, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable, so your vote, please. That passes 7-0. Ordinance number 25-21 by number only the first time, 25-21 the second, and 25-21 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 25-21 be passed and approved.
Second.
Any more discussion needed from the public? Your vote, please. Passes 7-0. Okay. Public hearing, let's see, we have another public hearing we're going to open up for the public hearing for the purpose of considering adoption of plan modification 25-2 to the redevelopment plan for redevelopment area number 9, Mainsway redevelopment project.
Yeah, so this is one of those TIF projects we're working on. Michelle's been waiting patiently. Picked the wrong meeting to have this come up, I think. So this would be the bowling alley. I think everybody's familiar with the bowling alley on the east side of town. Michelle's looking to rehab and refurbish that particular property there. If she'd like to come up and talk about her particular project, she's more than welcome to. But as you guys know through the TIF process, this is the fourth meeting in that process, right? So it's been the CRA, it's been the planning and zoning, it goes back to CRA, it comes back here for your guys' approval. Assuming you guys approve it tonight, it'll go back to CRA for a fifth and final meeting. We've had more people attend this one than any of the others combined. If you look through there, this is a redevelopment area that we created somewhere about 2020, somewhere in there is when this redevelopment area was created. This meets all of the specifications for the TIF itself. Most of the TIF revenue on this particular item will be used for site acquisition as probably the most likely eligible expense that it'll be used for. Outside of that, Michelle, you want to come up and talk about what you're doing? You don't have to.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes.
Come on up.
Well, we're excited. We're past the point of what have we done purchasing that property. My son Waylon brought him along with me. He's now going to eventually inherit a bowling alley, I guess. And he's got a full-time job ahead of him down the road. We are, it's a lot. It's a lot. We looked at this 3 times. This is the 3rd time I got approached. Should have purchased it a couple times ago, probably. But we're going all in. My son talked me into this. He said, "Mom, the community needs this. We can do this. Let's do this." So I guess we're doing this. And I'm hoping the support of that TIF project would be absolutely wonderful because we don't qualify for anything else out there. I have looked into a few things, and the entertainment category does not qualify us for other things. And so we are doing this for the community, the surrounding area, people are excited, people are positive, and have not had any negative comments other than, what are you thinking? Well, I'm going to try and prove that we are going to do this right for the next 30 years. We're not going to patch it, piece it. We're going to do this right for the community, and I appreciate any support that I can get from all of you. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah.
I guess I would just like to thank you on behalf of the city for investing in our community. That's great for you to do that, and wish you the best of luck, and I think you'll be successful. So
Thank you.
Michelle, I think everybody up here thanks you for doing that. It's the only bowling facility we're going to have, and the improvements you're going to make is outstanding, and I know it's a large project. So I wish you, and all of us wish you the best of luck.
I promise you it's going to be wow. That's all I can say. And Waylon, he's the one that talked me into this. So having one child is probably not a good thing. I should have had another one. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Michelle. Any other questions? Not, let's close the hearing.
I move the public hearing be closed at 7:16 p.m.
Second.
And your vote, please. And that passes 7-0. The next public hearing is for purpose of considering the application for Maine's Way LLC, doing business as Maine's Lanes, 2223 Court Street, Beatrice, Nebraska, for a Class C liquor license. All right, gentlemen.
You want to swear them in?
Yes.
Let me go first? Sure. All right.
Hold on, Chief.
Uh-oh.
Hang on.
Standing by.
Do you gentlemen swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
We do.
All right. Now whoever wants to start can.
This probably was one of the easiest reviews I've done in a while because it pretty well followed the same list as when we did a couple years for the same location. Nothing from a zoning standpoint has changed over there. Most all the businesses are the same. Business model isn't changing. We're just changing ownership. So from our zoning point, we're good to go.
Chief?
As far as the applicant, Michelle Maines, we did a background investigation on her. Clean bill of slate, so nothing that prohibits her from having a Class C license. So.
Any questions up here? If not, let's close the hearing.
I move the public hearing be closed at 7:17 p.m.
Your vote, please.
Second.
Whoops. Got ahead of the game.
Gary, second. Thank you. All right, now your vote.
All right. Passes 7-0.
I move the application of the Wayne's May Way LLC, doing business as Maine's Lanes, 223 Court Street, Beatrice, Nebraska, for a Class C liquor license be recommended to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission for approval.
Second.
Any more discussion needed? If not, your vote, please. And that passes 7-0. I'm like Tobias, thank you so much for your patience. We had a lot of stuff we had to get done, but thank you very much for your investment in the community. All right, we have another public hearing. It's for the purpose of considering the rezoning of real property commonly known as 29912 U.S. Highway 77, Beatrice, Nebraska, 68310, Gage County, partial number 005215000, and a portion of real property commonly known as 30026 U.S. Highway 77, Beatrice, Nebraska, 68310, Gage County, partial ID 005220000 from agricultural district to rural residential district.
Not everybody knows exactly where we're talking about. Highway 77, you go south of town there between Lilac and the South Booster Station in there. There are two property owners that are trading or selling some ground to from one to the other. And so the house initially that faces along Highway 77 has been zoned ag. Since they're adding some additional property on there, it's being zoned rural residential. And so the two property numbers you have there is one is where the house is at, the other is the acreage behind it that's selling ground, which is why there are two different parcel numbers there. But you can see most everything else around there is rural residential. And so at the end of the day, later tonight when you approve the plat, hopefully, this will be part of the zoning that goes with it.
Any discussion needed? If not, let's close the hearing.
I move the public hearing be closed at 7:20 PM.
Second.
Your vote, please. Passes 7-0. So we'll do on resolution number 7625, adopting plan modification 25-2 to the redevelopment plan for redevelopment area number 9, Mainsway redevelopment project.
I move the resolution number 7625 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Any other discussion needed? Yep. Your vote, please. And that passes 7-0. All right, resolution number 7626, adopting a cash reserve policy.
I move the resolution number 7626 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Yeah, one of the things we've talked about for quite some time is the cash reserve policy. We've kind of had an informal one, if you will, over the last decade or so. We thought it was time to finally formalize it and bring it before you. And so Hannah tonight is going to go over the cash reserve policy that we're proposing, and hopefully answer all the questions you might have.
Thanks, Tobias. So all of you should have the reserve policy in front of you. If we just quickly kind of move through page 1. The main point I wanted to talk about there is just the purpose of the document itself. So we list out short-term and long-term financial stability, and then making sure that our reserves are neither larger than we need or less than what we need. So finding that middle ground where we're protected from any outstanding or any liabilities that we might not know about, but then also making sure that we're not being too stingy and hoarding all the cash, that we can continue to get those capital projects flowing out as well at the rate appropriate for our budget. So I know there's a lot of definitions to start with, and I won't get into those too much, but I do want to point out a couple just so we can kind of walk through the language of the document. So to begin with, the first section there talks about fund balance. So your term fund balance is used if we're talking about governmental funds. So that would be your general fund, your street fund, and your airport fund. The main ones to point out there, we talk about restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. So an example of restricted would be the cash that we're holding for the gas plant cleanup. Your committed funds would be the CARES money that we've been carrying forward since COVID that we're planning to spend in 26. If we move on to page 2. Your assigned funds are lodging tax dollars, EMS dollars, anything that we've put a name on but necessarily don't have like a resolution that's holding it there. And then your unassigned is the residual balance after all of those different designations. And then next it talks about net position. So we use the term net position if we're talking about an enterprise fund or an internal service fund. So think any of those that are revenue generating funds, so electric, water, WPC, sanitation, that's where we're going to use the term net position instead. So that walks you through real quick just the definitions that we have in the document. If we move on to the fund reserve target levels. So in each of them, we list out the percentages that we're proposing and why we think that those are the right range to be in. So for the general fund, we're looking at 25 to 50% of general fund total expenditures, less internal service funds, and capital projects for the subsequent fiscal year. And I'd also like to point out too, in the budget document on the fund balance, if you remember, we listed out what these target levels would be based on the budget. So those were all built in the budget document for some good examples too. In the street fund, we're looking at 25 to 50% of operating expenses. And then airport fund, also 25 to 50% of the operating expenses. If we move on to the enterprise funds, electric, water, and WPC are also using that 25 to 50% of operating expenses. However, in the electric fund, we're also proposing a 25% of the purchase power cost for the subsequent fiscal year, since that is a substantial cost within that fund. For the sanitation fund, that's the only one that we're proposing also looking at the capital expenses. That fund if we're looking at maybe what's an emergency that could be paid for out of that fund, we're really talking about the purchase of a garbage truck. So I think it's important to also consider the cost of the capital expenses within that one. And then BOSWA, 15 to 30% of the operating expenses. Another key thing to point out, any special reserve funds, again, where we're getting into like restricted versus unrestricted. So some examples of those that would be considered restricted dollars within those would be your infrastructure funds between electric, water, and WPC, the rate stability funds in the electric department, any funds that we're holding for customer deposits, and then your closure, post-closure funds that we're holding within BOSWA. And then we're also not including depreciation in any of those calculations. The only internal service funds that we are proposing a cash reserve fund for would be your employee benefit account, your EBA fund. So this is where all of the other funds make transfers into the EBA fund to pay all of our health claims. There's a large outstanding liability within health claims that's not necessarily a controllable cost. So it's good to have a cash reserve fund in place for that one as well. And then in that next section, we talk about some of the unique fund situations we have that we don't necessarily see that we need a specific reserve level for. I won't get into them too much, but debt reserve fund, we're putting funds into those funds to make bond payments. So there's really no need to have a defined cash reserve policy within those. IT fund, we're hoping that as funds roll in, that they're also covering the expenses within that one. So again, no need for a cash reserve amount in that one either. Getting into reserve condition of use and replenishment. So again, cash reserve to address unanticipated or non-recurring needs. So as we're looking at, let's say what happens when we fall below the 25% or the 15%, depending on which funds we're looking at. We're proposing within this document that we would have a plan in place over the next 3 fiscal years from that point. We chose 3 fiscal years since we do the biennial budget, so that way we'd have a whole budget cycle regardless of if we would find the anomaly in year 1 or year 2. And then let's say we would exceed those targets if we'd get above that 30% or the 50%. Identifying capital projects or new construction that we could use those funds on, and maybe reducing city indebtedness. So with some of those funds that do have bonds outstanding, maybe paying off bonds early, that would be a good use of those. But I just wanted to stress that not using them for recurring operating expenses and really limiting it to those maybe one-time expenses outside of the regular budget. And then that next section just kind of gives you an example of, I missed one. Monitor and review. So that section we talk about when we're planning on looking through this information. So we kind of already did it with our budget process. I have the examples built into the budget document. So you can see where we think we should be within those target ranges and where we're anticipating hitting in 26 and in 27. And then we're also planning on reviewing this information with you during the audit process. So that's usually February or March. So that way we're looking at it every 6 months and using those. I think that's a good time to review it as well. We'd have real numbers for where we're ending September 30th in that February or March range, and then projecting out those years as we're working on the budget in September. And then that next section just gives you a few examples of where those funds would be if we were in the 25 to 50%. I won't dig into those too much. Again, they were in those budget documents as well. But most of them were either slightly above, close to range. There's a few that we dip below based on capital projects that we might have set for 26 or 27. That's kind of what I've got for you. Any questions or where to start conversation on that?
I was trying to think your hand. We would exceed this, if sales tax receipts came in higher than normal or something?
Yeah, so a good example, and it's a little more of like an exact line item if we're picking out specifically sales tax. But yeah, one of the projects, the dumpsters cleanup, that wasn't something that was budgeted. Sales tax dollars came in higher, interest came in higher than what we thought. So we had some of those additional cash flows that we were able to add that.
I think we've talked this to death. I think we clear back in January, we talked about it when we were talking about it. And I have to admit, I was a little bit lukewarm to start with, but you guys have made good arguments over the last 9 or 10 months. I don't think there's anything wrong with having guidance here. I really do not, so.
Yeah, I appreciate what Hannah does, and Tobias and the mayor. Tobias, you could probably recite what happened in Nebraska City with no cash reserves, and Bob cited one this morning, and you have to start operating on your reserves. Pretty soon you will be broke. It's just inevitable. So I appreciate that this council can look down the road farther than their nose and come up with something that sounds pretty reasonable.
Anybody else? And if you're like me, percentages didn't mean much, so I asked Hannah what those meant, and basically that means 3 to 6 months cash in the bank at any one point in time. Because, like I said, I couldn't wrap my hands around 25 to 50%. All right. Any more discussion? If not, your vote, please. That passes 7-0. Thank you, Hannah. All right, resolution number 7627, establishing various fees.
I move that resolution number 7627 be passed and adopted.
Second.
As we do every year, when we pass the budget, we come back with a fee resolution, because in that budget, we built in some additional or changes to some fees. And this particular fee resolution, what we have is an increase in ambulance rates. Again, we try to get closer to what maybe Medicaid write-off is, or Medicare, or what our actual expenses are. We have water park rates. We're proposing to increase those 50 cents per day, and a season pass going up $5. And also some increases to the party rates that we have at the water park. We're looking at camping rates, increasing those a little bit this upcoming year. And we've added in a MOTA-owned fee. We've had a MOTA-owned program for a couple of years, but the fee was never spelled out in the fee resolution, so we make sure we included that one. And same thing with hydrant meter fees. We've had people who've had tapped a fire hydrant for usually large water uses, but we've never had an actual fee written down anywhere, and so we put those fees in here. They're the same fees we've been charging for years, but actually finally put them in the fee resolution and have them approved.
Any discussion needed, gentlemen and ladies? All right. If not, your vote, please. That passes 7-0. All right, we'll move on. Okay, we have resolution number 7628, executing the First Amendment to the union contract with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, local number 1536, AFL-CIO, regarding work performed as part of mutual aid and to eliminate the maximum pay for employees represented by the union.
I move that resolution number 7628 be passed and adopted.
Second.
So the IBEW union is one of 3 unions the city has. It represents essentially all employees except the police and fire. Just about everybody else falls into the IBEW union. What we're proposing, they're in a 6-year contract. We're in the middle of that 6-year contract, but when sitting down meeting with them, we propose a couple of amendments to their particular contract. One is to remove all the maximum wages on all of the job classifications. This is something we did for non-union employees a couple of years ago. Right now, the way the system works, regardless of which job classification you're in within the union, at some point you hit the maximum on your pay scale, and although you may be a great employee, the rules say we simply cannot give you any additional money. As you can imagine, that may not give a lot of people an incentive then to continue to be good employees after they've kind of hit that max. And so one of the proposals is to remove that one. The other one that the union came to us with was, it's very typical when especially electric linemen go to other places to help work for when there is storm damage, that they get paid from the time they leave Beatrice to the time they get back. In addition, they usually get paid 200% of their wage, or the rate that's prevailing at the job site they're at. So if they go work for OPPD, if their electric linemen get paid more, they usually get paid that prevailing wage. That's not something we had in our system here. That doesn't negatively impact the city, because while we will make that payment to our employees today under their when their payroll comes out, what happens then is we turn around and bill OPPD for the wages that we had in our guys, and then OPPD pays us back, or Seward, or whoever we went and helped. So at the end of the day, it's not negatively impacting City of Beatrice, but does give our guys some incentive to go out and help those other communities. Talking to Pat today, when those guys went to OPPD, they were there for I think 6 days. They were up in Seward for 3 or 4 days not too long ago, and so they're away from their family for quite some time. They would like some additional compensation for that. So those are the two amendments in this proposed amendment before you tonight.
Discussion. Seeing none, your vote, please. That passes 7-0. Resolution number 7629, executing an animal control services agreement with R. Steve Bragg for the term of 2 years, beginning October 1st, 2025 and ending September 30, 2027.
I move the resolution number 7629 be passed and adopted.
Second.
We've had some conversations about the animal control officer position. As you guys recall, we went and issued an RFP about a month ago or so. Ended up getting back some responses. When working through those, we had one response that was on time. The other response did not come in in a timely manner. Ultimately, what we're proposing tonight is that we renew the contract with Steve Bragg. Contract terms are very similar to what they were before, a few minor changes, but that his rate would go to $72,000 per year, an increase from the $60,000 he's been at since he started doing this 10 years ago or so.
Discussion.
I have one question. When I read through that, why is there a 30-minute, he's got 30 minutes to respond when he gets a call?
That has been what has been the requirement of him to respond since he started 10 years ago.
Is that because he doesn't have an office here in town?
It doesn't matter that he would live in town, doesn't live in town.
You know, the only thing I look at is that, you know, if there is some dog that attacks or something like that, in 30 minutes, who knows where that dog's going to be? That's just a concern that, you know, I think. So I was just questioning it. Thank you.
No.
Okay. Anything else? If not, your vote, please. And that passes 6-1. All right, now we'll move on to another ordinance. Ordinance amending the zoning map for the city of Beatrice, Nebraska by changing the zoning of real property commonly known as 29912 U.S. Highway 77, Beatrice, Nebraska 68310, Gage County, partial ID 005215000, and a portion of real property commonly known as 30026 U.S. Highway 77, Beatrice, Nebraska 68310, Gage County parcel number 005220000 from AG Agricultural District to RR Rural Residential District.
I move that said ordinance be given number 25-22, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said number be read by 3 times tonight.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. That passes 7-0. Ordinance number 25-22 by number only the first time, 25-22 the second, and 25-22 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 25-22 be passed and approved.
Second.
Any more discussion needed other than what we've had?
Yeah, the next thing you'll have is the plat, which plats this piece of ground, or rezoning it now. And then the reason we like to have them platted is so we don't have these really long legal descriptions to read in the future.
And that's appreciated. All right, your vote, please. That passes 7-0. Now we have an ordinance approving the plat for Schroeder's First Subdivision, City of Beatrice, Gage County, Nebraska.
I move that said ordinance be given number 25-23, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. That passes 7-0. Ordinance number 25-23 by number only the first time, 25-23 the second, and 25-3 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 25-23 be passed and approved.
Second.
This is the plat that we've talked about a couple of times. You see it up there on the screen. You'll see it in your packet. But just as we indicated, one property owner adjacent to us selling some land to the other one. So they're replanting it all into one lot.
Any discussion needed? Your vote, please. That passes 7-0. All right, we have ordinance vacating lots 1 and 30 through 34, Gage County Industrial Park, second addition to the City of Beatrice, Gage County, Nebraska.
I move that said ordinance be given number 25-24, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. That passes 7-0. Ordinance number 25-24 by number only the first time, 25-24 the second, and 25-24 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 25-24 be passed and approved.
Second.
So hopefully, we're getting to the end of a project that seems to be going on for a lot longer than any of us anticipated. If everybody recalls, out in the industrial park, there's a little pond there that sits just north of Sargent Street. As we indicated in the past, that pond is going to serve as the regional detention center for that area. We had JEO do a study. It showed the 100-year floodplain reaching out to many of those lots around there. And so then we asked them again to kind of map it. What could we kind of pull out of there? How could we redo that ground up there so that we could have as much buildable ground as possible? So what the next thing you have coming up is a plat that replats these lots that you are vacating now. We end up with a couple of lots that are just to the east of the pond, as we've had in the past. We end up with changing a little bit of the lots to the north of there. And then lot 30, that we've discussed for quite some time, that would be west of the pond. Much of that, as you see, is needed for the stormwater detention cell moving forward, but we were able to carve off a little bit of ground all the way off to the west, as we've had somebody indicated their interest in buying that piece of ground. So we've worked to try to get them something. If you're asking why you have a vacation on this one and not the last one, since the previous ground was never platted, you didn't need to vacate it first. This ground was platted previously, so you have to vacate it and then replat it. The other ground you changed the zoning on. This one you're not changing zoning on. It was industrial before, the industrial after, so that's why you're not rezoning it. So if you're wondering why, the procedure is a little different for each one.
Any discussion needed? And yes, this does come to a close, a long process.
Yep.
And quite honestly, more on JEO, is it JEO?
Yes.
Joe's plate than ours. Your vote, please. That passes 7-0. Okay. Go back. Yep. All right, now an ordinance approving the plat of Gage County Industrial Park, third addition to the City of Beatrice, Gage County, Nebraska.
I move that said ordinance be given number 25-25, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. That passes 7-0. Ordinance number 25-25 by number only the first time, 25-25 the second time, and 25-25 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 25-25 be passed and approved.
Second.
Any more discussion needed? If not, your vote, please. That passes 7-0. All right, we'll move on to the next ordinance. It is revising the water rate charges for water purchased from the City of Beatrice as recommended by the Board of Public Works.
I move that said ordinance be given number 25-27, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
A motion,
Second.
oops, sorry. Gary, right?
Yep.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. And that passes 7-0.
I move that ordinance number 25-27 be passed and approved.
Second.
Much like we did with the electric rate ordinance earlier, this is a water rate ordinance. It's kind of these things were built into your budget well, again, what we're calling for here is an increase in the infrastructure fee of $2 per month for both residential and commercial customers. There's also a slight increase to the price per gallon for Coke and Agrium of 3 cents per 1,000 gallons. And we also increased the monthly service charge to Philly, the NRD, some of those other ones, also that $2 per month, much like we're doing for the infrastructure fee.
Now that we said that, I didn't read it 3 times.
Yeah, you did.
Did I?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're good.
Good. So it's going to be a long meeting, sorry. All right. Any discussion needed? If not, your vote, please. That passes 7-0. I just didn't remember reading it 3 times. Okay.
All kind of run together, don't they?
Yes, they do. I feel like a robot. All right, ordinance regarding the fees and charges for the use of the wastewater treatment system for the city of Beatrice, Nebraska, as recommended by the Board of Public Works.
I move that said ordinance be given number 25-28, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
A motion
Second.
to suspend the rules is not debatable. And it passes 7-0. Ordinance number 25-28 by number only the first time, 25-28 the second time, 25-28 the third and final time.
I move that said ordinance 25-28 be passed and approved.
Second.
This is for wastewater. It also calls for an increase in the infrastructure fee of $2 per month for residential, commercial, and permitted users.
So at the end, how much more are people going to be paying average on their bill a month?
So we said $5.25 for electric earlier, plus we said $2 for wastewater, and we had $2 for water. So that puts you at $9.25 per month for a typical residential customer.
Right, okay, I just want to say that. Do the math for everybody.
Okay. All right, your vote, please. That passed 7-0. Move on to ordinance, the next ordinance, ordinance amending section 13-52, 13-53, 13-54, 13-55, 13-56, 13-57, 13-61, and 13-62 of the Beatrice City Code regarding peddler permits.
I move that said ordinance be given number 25-29, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
Motions to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. And that passes 7-0. Ordinance number 25-29 by number only the first time, 25-29 the second, and 25-29 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 25-29 be passed and approved.
Second.
So peddler permits, right? This is anybody who wants to go door to door. Well, not anybody. It's certain people who want to go door to door and sell goods and wares. Not everybody qualifies. It's kind of an odd who qualifies, who doesn't. But we had an internal conversation about whether or not to keep peddler permits or get rid of them. The consensus was to keep peddler permits moving forward. And so with that, we wanted to go through and clean up the current peddler permit ordinances that we have. If you look through the red line copy, largely what we're doing is on the application is clarifying or cleaning up what you actually need to do to turn in an application. You can see it's all the same information, just worded a little bit differently. So again, you have to have the application, which includes a name and address, phone number, email address. You have to name the business that you're working for, briefly describe what it is you're selling, the make and model of your car, some of that information. You then still have to go up and get fingerprinted. We still do a background check. All those things are the same as they are today. We just kind of cleaned up how that works in here. And then the next several sections, we just really cleaned it up. There were some times when we called Aaron the clerk, not the city clerk. So we cleaned that up. Or it was, you have 14 days. Was that calendar days or is that business days? We just clarified a few of those things. The only substantive change in this has to do with if we're going to revoke a permit from somebody, the old rule said we mailed you notice. Well, the issue we had with that was a lot of times these people are traveling and maybe don't go back to their permanent address, and so a letter being mailed to them would never reach them. So what we have in here today is that we will notify you in the event that we're going to terminate or revoke your permit, which I can't remember one that we've ever done. But if we're going to do that, we're going to email you at the address you provided on your application, and we're going to call you based on the phone number that you put on your application to notify you that, so that you can come in and appeal if you want to appeal. We thought that might be a better way to try to reach somebody if we had to. That's the only substantive change in this proposed rate ordinance change.
Discussion. Seeing none, your vote, please. And that is passed 7-0. Okay, we'll move on to ordinance amending section 19-9 of the Beatrice City Code regarding camping on city-owned property.
I move the said ordinance be given number 25-30, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. That passes 7-0. Ordinance number 25-30 by number only the first time, 25-30 the second, and 25-30 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 25-30 be passed and approved.
Second.
One of the changes that your Public Property Director, Mark Pethod, brought before us was to set a maximum length of stay in the campgrounds for both Riverside and Chautauqua. You'll see that Riverside was set at a max of 7 days unless approved by him. Chautauqua was set at a max of 30 days unless approved by him. And then if you are asked to leave the campground, we wanted to make it was clear that your camping fee would be non-refundable. That was something, obviously, there was an incident. We didn't have a place we could point to and show it to them. So we want to make sure that was clear in the ordinance going forward.
Harsh.
Your vote, please. And that passes 7-0. Ordinance establishing salaries and compensation for various city and Board of Public Works non-union employees.
I move the said ordinance be given number 25-31, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. And it passes 7-0.
I move that ordinance, let's see, 25-30, correct?
31.
31. 31 be approved. Passed and approved, sorry. Lost my place.
You're good.
You got too many on here.
Ordinance number 25-31 by number only the first time, 25-31 the second, and 25-31 the third and final time.
We got a motion to pass and approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Rue. So salary ordinance is something required by law that we do every year. We have to approve the salaries for all the employees. This one is for non-union employees. It calls for a 2.5% increase for non-union employees. IBW, which is coming up next, they're 2.5% pursuant to their union contract. Fire department's coming up next, they're at 2.5%. The FOP is currently under negotiation, so if you're asking why they're not included, that'd be why. But the first one before you tonight is non-union employees, 2.5%, matches all the other employees.
Any discussion needed? If not, your vote, please. That passes 7-0. Then move on to ordinance establishing salaries and compensation for various city and Board of Public Works union employees.
I move the said ordinance be given number 25-32, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
The motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. Passes 7-0. Ordinance number 25-32 by number only the first time, 25-32 the second, and 25-32 the third and final time.
Move that ordinance number 25-32 be passed and approved.
Second.
So again, pursuant to union contracts that are currently in place, they call for 2.5% increases for IBEW and for the fire department, which is what you have in this salary ordinance. FOP, whenever we get theirs settled and negotiated, we'll bring that one before you.
What's the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H mean? Do you know?
Oh, if you're looking at that one, that would be for some of let me pull it up so I make sure I talk about the right thing, rather than just thinking I know what you're talking about.
I just didn't know what the,
So the fire department and the police department, they have steps
Okay.
in their salaries, or in their union contracts. So you start as a letter A and you move across generally each year. Police is each year. Fire has a few things they have to meet, but just about every year they move across there, so that'd be their steps.
I just didn't know what it meant.
Yep.
Thank you.
You don't see the IBEW because they got rid of their steps about a decade ago, and then earlier tonight, they wanted to get rid of the maximums, so that's why you don't see maximums on theirs.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, your vote, please. And that passes 7-0. I think we're down to public forum.
We are.
All right. Purpose of the public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to the city council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the city council this time. Anybody want to talk for the public forum? Nope. All right, we'll move on to the city administrator's monthly report.
Yeah, just a couple of highlights in there. We did the aquatic park study. It's ongoing. If you're not able to attend the meeting the other night, the survey is available on our website. It's very simple. Amanda made it super easy. You go to the website, so at the top of the banner says water park study. Click on that. It asks you 10, 12 questions about the water park, provide input as to what you'd like to see in the new aquatic park. So I'd encourage everybody to go out and do that one, including council members. Update you on a forestry grant. So we have one forestry grant. We notified we got awarded another forestry grant, which will allow us to do some additional tree surveys. If you guys recall, we had JEO down. They did a tree survey of what was in the parks. This will allow us to kind of expand that to some other areas. So we're working on getting those documents coming through. And then finally, Astro Park installation has started. There's been an ongoing issue with the installer, but those have been resolved. They're currently on scene and they're starting their work. Mark figured it'd take them about 10 days, 2 weeks to get everything done, depending on the rain and how much we get tomorrow and Wednesday.
Any questions? If not, draw your attention that the next regular city council meeting will be October 6, 2025, 6 p.m. right here in the BPS Administrative Building boardroom. Also, there will be a special meeting September 30th at noon in the City Hall, which is to approve all of the last claims. So we close out that particular year, and then October 1st, we start our 2026 year. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn at 7:57 PM.
Second.
And your vote, please. And that passed 7-0. Thank you, everyone, for their patience. It was a good night.